The NFL marketplace shows mercy to absolutely nobody's medical file, and the sport just delivered a masterclass in exactly how quickly a billion-dollar transaction collapses when the examination room tells a different story than the highlight reel. The entire league paused to watch the Las Vegas Raiders attempt to extract 2 first-round picks from the Baltimore Ravens for Max Crosby. The deal existed on paper with the kind of structural completeness that makes front offices exhale and media outlets prepare their announcements. Then the physical examination happened. The surgically repaired knee communicated its own verdict through the clinical language that orthopedic specialists translate with cold precision, and Baltimore's front office did the only rational thing available to an organization that understands the difference between acquiring a pass rusher and acquiring a rehabilitation timeline. They walked away without apology. The market absorbed the shock, and every general manager with Crosby on their radar simultaneously recalibrated their approach. The franchise sitting in the most strategically advantageous position inside that recalibration is wearing red and gold. The San Francisco 49ers endured the worst sack production numbers in the entire league last season. A defensive collapse that placed impossible pressure on Nick Bosa and exposed the pass rush infrastructure surrounding him as fundamentally insufficient for the competitive demands of an NFC championship window. The temptation to pursue Crosby's name recognition was real and understandable. His ceiling, when the knee cooperates, generates a kind of interior disruption that transforms defensive units. But John Lynch just demonstrated the organizational discipline that separates intelligent front offices from reactive ones. When a medical report contradicts a marquee, you redirect toward the solution that actually solves the problem. The new target locked in John Lynch's scope sits in Texas, where the Dallas Cowboys have created the specific organizational surplus condition that produces trade opportunities for patient franchises willing to wait for the right moment. Osa Odighizuwa earned Pro Bowl recognition through interior pass rush production that the Cowboys' defensive line accumulation has now rendered logistically redundant. Quinnen Williams and Kenny Clark arrived and consumed the positional oxygen that Odighizuwa previously breathed exclusively, transforming a validated starter into a roster traffic problem that Jerry Jones' front office needs to resolve before the salary cap mathematics force an uncomfortable decision without trade compensation attached. Before Odighizuwa's interior pressure efficiency metrics hit your screen in full analytical detail, you're assuming control of San Francisco's war room right now. The salary cap implications sit directly in your hands. Do you absorb the approximately $20 million cap impact required to bring Odighizuwa to the Bay Area, solving the interior pass rush deficiency that has prevented Nick Bosa from operating as the singular defensive force his talent demands? Or do you protect the draft capital and cap flexibility? Take your chances with a rookie selected through the draft process and ask Bosa to continue absorbing double coverage while the developmental timeline for a first-year player unfolds at its own pace? Think with a trench strategist's cold precision, because Nick Bosa cannot sustain being the only genuine threat on San Francisco's defensive line indefinitely without the physical accumulation extracting a performance cost that championship windows cannot afford. Let's examine the balance sheet of this Texas acquisition with complete analytical clarity. Dallas built a defensive line equivalent of a roster traffic jam, accumulating interior talent at a rate that exceeded their positional deployment capacity. The Williams and Clark arrivals didn't diminish Odighizuwa's individual capability. His Pro Bowl production validated through competitive performance against NFL offensive lines doesn't evaporate because the Cowboys signed additional talent around him. What changed is the organizational context surrounding his deployment, creating the specific surplus condition where a legitimate starter becomes a trade asset through roster mathematics rather than performance deterioration. That distinction matters enormously for San Francisco's acquisition calculus. The 49ers aren't pursuing a reclamation project requiring developmental patience or medical risk tolerance. They're pursuing a validated Pro Bowl interior rusher whose market availability reflects organizational arithmetic at his current team rather than any diminishment of his competitive capability. The difference between acquiring Crosby's compromised knee and acquiring Odighizuwa's established production profile is the difference between gambling on a medical recovery and investing in demonstrated performance at exactly the position that San Francisco's defensive infrastructure requires immediate reinforcement. The Matt Eberflus dimension embedded in this transaction carries strategic weight that the surface-level roster analysis consistently undervalues. Coaching familiarity with a player's specific skill set, tendencies, deployment preferences, and optimal usage patterns creates a competitive advantage that doesn't appear in any statistical database, but manifests consistently in how quickly acquired players translate their individual capability into scheme-specific production. Eberflus understands precisely how Odighizuwa functions most destructively within a defensive framework, which alignments maximizes interior pass rush angles, and which situational context extract his highest leverage contributions against specific offensive formations. That knowledge eliminates the adaptation period that typically separates an acquisition's arrival from its genuine schematic integration, compressing the timeline during which the 49ers actually benefit from the investment. The Nick Bosa dependency problem that last season exposed deserves direct examination because it defines the urgency surrounding this entire defensive line conversation. Bosa's individual excellence as a pass rusher operates at a level that consistently generates the kind of quarterback pressure that changes game outcomes and forces offensive coordinators to construct game plans around neutralizing his impact. The paradox is that his dominance creates the precise targeting pattern that offensive lines exploit when the interior threat alongside him fails to command independent attention. When opposing protections can dedicate additional resources toward Bosa's anticipated rush lane, without consequence from an interior threat requiring equal respect, his production efficiency suffers regardless of his individual effort and capability. Odighizuwa's interior presence resolves that paradox through the specific mechanism that defensive line construction is designed to exploit. An offensive line cannot simultaneously double Bosa on exterior and maintain gap integrity against a Pro Bowl interior rusher attacking the A and B gaps with validated pass rush moves. The mathematical impossibility of that protection assignment forces coordinators to make compromised decisions that create vulnerability regardless of which threat they prioritize. That vulnerability is where championship pass rushes generate the quarterback pressure that defensive coordinators design their entire systems to manufacture. The Raiders' situation hovering over this entire market conversation serves as a specific cautionary evidence that Lynch apparently absorbed before redirecting his organizational focus toward Odighizuwa. Purchasing Crosby's highlight reel without adequate weight given to the surgical history that the physical examination confirmed would have produced the exact organizational outcome that the Crosby to Baltimore deals collapse illustrated publicly. $30 million committed to a pass rusher spending December in an ice bath represents a supreme penalty for prioritizing name recognition over medical reality. And San Francisco's decision to redirect toward a healthier alternative reflects the institutional discipline that championship organizations develop through hard-earned experience with exactly that kind of expensive mistake. The cap impact calculation requires honest examination rather than reflexive concern about the number's absolute size. $20 million committed to a validated Pro Bowl interior pass rusher who solves the specific defensive deficiency that most directly compromised San Francisco's competitive performance last season represents a deployment of resources against an identified need with confirmed solution availability. The alternative allocation, draft capital and developmental patience applied to an unproven rookie, carries its own cost structure that the compressed championship window surrounding a roster featuring Bosa's prime years cannot absorb comfortably. Rookie interior pass rushers require developmental time that franchise cornerstone defensive ends operating in their competitive prime cannot wait for without the performance accumulation extracting its physical toll. Jerry Jones' phone is ringing with San Francisco's area code displayed, and the conversation happening at this moment determines whether the 49ers address their most critical defensive deficiency through the most efficient available mechanism, or allow organizational hesitation to extend a problem the roster can confirm and the market can solve simultaneously. The Cowboys need the cap relief and the draft compensation. The 49ers need the interior disruption that frees Bosa to operate as the singular force his talent demands. That mutual need alignment is the specific market condition where transactions close efficiently when both parties negotiate without the artificial leverage complications that the Crosby situation introduced into the broader pass rush market. The offer is prepared, and this tactical opportunity just landed in your hands with full competitive consequence attached. Staring at a championship window that demands immediate defensive line reinforcement rather than developmental patience. Do you slam the green button, send the offer to Dallas, and rebuild a defensive terror that Nick Bosa's presence deserves alongside him? Or do you allow the cap concern to override the competitive urgency? Watch the market reconfigure around a different buyer's willingness to act, and ask Bosa to continue carrying an insufficient supporting cast through another season while the 49ers' championship window narrows? Send your most unfiltered verdict into the comments without softening a single strategic edge. San Francisco's defensive identity was built on the principle that elite pass rush construction requires multiple genuine threats operating simultaneously, and Osa Odighizuwa represents the specific solution the market just made available through Dallas's roster surplus at precisely the moment the 49ers' need is most acute. The Crosby medical report was a gift of organizational clarity. The question is whether Lynch uses that clarity to act decisively or allows hesitation to convert a perfect market moment into a missed championship opportunity.